Virginia versus Clemson results, and I've got offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, offensive grades, and defensive grades. And then we'll get into Miami. Okay, fellas? Let's start with Houston since we started with Al. Offensive player of the game for me, it was hard to pick between Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. Trevor Lawrence, 329 yards, 3 touchdowns. Travis Etienne, 114 receiving yards and 2 total touchdowns. ESPN, I believe, gave a sticker to Travis Etienne. I'm going to give it to Trevor Lawrence for coming out again. 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns. Great job from the man who, as of this season, I don't believe has thrown an interception and is killing it through the air. So good job, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go on the other side of this and go with Travis Etienne. 114 receiving yards, and a lot of that was on his own. I don't have the yards after catch. And to be honest with you, I don't think the play calling was really putting him into an advantage. He made a lot of plays despite some really, really bad play calling, bad blocking, and made the most of his night. So he absolutely deserves player of the game for me. And I think he got his name right back in the Heisman race with the way that he performed on Saturday night.
Yeah, I have literally zero to add to what Houston said. He's 100% right. It's Travis Etienne, no doubt about it. Made a lot out of nothing. Didn't get help from Tony Elliott, I didn't believe. And he didn't get a lot of help from his line either. I mean, what he did, he made all on his own. So definitely going with Etienne as well.
And that's no knock to really Clemson as a whole. I mean, Virginia, we knew coming into the game, had a better defense, one of the better defenses that they will play this year in the ACC. So I expected a lot from the Virginia defense. I did not necessarily expect 400-plus yards from Virginia's offense, and we'll talk about that. Defensive player of the game, though, I have to give a shout-out to Andrew Booth with the nice one-handed interception in the end zone. However, not my defensive player of the game. I got to give it to the guy who was all over the field, and that is Baylon Spector. 13 total tackles, a half a sack, and 1.5 tackles for loss. So both guys, great job, but again, I'm going with Spector on this one.
I'm going to go with Booth, and it may not show up on the stat sheet, but he looked like he made the jump that we've been expecting him to make. I've been waiting to see what Booth would look like in his truest form, and he looked like it on Saturday night. You have that spectacular Odell Beckham-esque interception, which comes on the heels of an unusual sequence where the targeting gets overturned. That same guy catches a pass and is talking trash to the defense, and then he gets reverse mossed basically by Andrew Booth. It was fitting. And then on top of that, he had some great pass breakups. I think him and Darion Kendrick had a pretty solid night at the corner spot. But I think Booth had a spectacular game, and I think he gets Defensive Player of the Game.
Yeah, I hate for you to be wrong twice, Morgan, but you are. It's definitely Andrew Booth. He had a great night. Like Houston said, had some, not only the interception heard around the world, or seen around the world rather. It was absolutely crazy, and what a great play it was. It's the Booth we've been waiting on, and he had some good pass breakups like Houston mentioned as well. There's a lot of physicality to his game. Once or twice he probably should have been flagged for pass interference. He wasn't. It's a physical game. The refs make the call. They didn't. So he gets credit for the breakup, and he looked really good. I like that. We need some physical corners. Kendrick played good as well, but yeah, it's definitely Booth as Defensive Player of the Game.
Kendrick's always so physical, in your face, and loves to talk trash on the sideline. So I love it to see it from him. And he seems like an equivalent, a little bit taller guy in Andrew Booth Jr. as well. So really cool to see those two guys kind of getting into their own as the season goes on. Offense and defensive grades, and we've got some questions in here, some thoughts on Brent Venables maybe not pressuring the other team as much. I don't know if I necessarily saw that. I'll let you guys see if you think that too. But for me, I give the offense a B because they had 400-something total yards. They had a great performance from Trevor Lawrence, great performance from Travis Etienne, spreaded the ball around in the receiving core. A lot of people got touches. Issues with some false starts. I think they had like 3 false starts in the first half. They kind of settled down a little bit in the second half. But it was a team they were supposed to beat or expected to beat. The spread was 28 points, a team they just destroyed last year with a more explosive quarterback and only come out and win 18. It was kind of like, it seemed just kind of like one of those games where it just was a channel turner, to be honest with you. I hate to say that, but I mean, I flipped back to the other games that were going on: Oklahoma, Iowa State, Auburn, Georgia, and Clemson. I was kind of on rotate, and nothing on any of those games really stuck out to me. So, I mean, I didn't really feel any flashiness coming from. Maybe it's the receiving core that we have. Maybe it's the play calls that we have going right now. A lot of people are saying it's because it's not the championship phase, and so maybe there's a lot of playbook that's not being used. But I felt it was just kind of average to me, not really exciting in my opinion. Now I did catch the Andrew Booth catch, so I like that for sure. But defense on that end, they had 2 interceptions, but allowed 417 total yards, and 4 of 5. Virginia was 4 of 5 on 4th down conversions. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it seemed like that power rushing team was able to run the ball over 100 yards and also able to kind of throw the ball as well. Obviously the game was, I felt like, never at risk. I mean, Clemson was going to win the game at every moment, but it just seemed like kind of a slow start for the Tigers. I actually give a defense a C. I think that I'm kind of not impressed with a 400 plus yard game from a team that I felt like is a power rushing team. So I got a B for offense, C for defense.
So, all right, for offense, I'm going to say a B minus, and I'm not going to put this on the players at all. I feel like for the most part, everybody was on point. When we got to the wide receivers, they made the most of their catches. Travis Etienne looked amazing. Trevor Lawrence looked spectacular. The offensive line had a couple things every now and again. Braden Galloway needs to improve, but I think the B part of this comes into how we handled offensively, the play calling and our rotations at certain points in the game. I do not understand. All right. I get it. We're not in championship phase. I understand that, this happens every year. But if we've got the athletes to do what we are able to do, why can't we take the kill shots a little earlier or take it a little bit more seriously? All right. Why are we having, a screen pass late in the game when we can put the game away, go to Lynn J. Dixon when he drops it? And I'm not saying Lynn J. Dixon is bad at it, but that's one of the mistakes. Why is he in there when you can just give it to Travis Etienne, who's already got 114 yards receiving for the night, and let him get 200 yards receiving for the night? Because he was going to go score on that play if you give it to Travis Etienne. Why are we – where's Joseph Ngata? He got one target. It was overthrown. It's one of the few mistakes that Trevor Lawrence made. So is Joe Ngata hurt? Is he not producing? What's the deal? Like, I need to know what's going on with that. 2, or I guess 3, what's going on with this play calling as far as with our running? It's slowly in our screen. Like, we did a ton of screen passes and we did a ton of these little lead draws. This offense, to me, had a game prep looking more like Rob Spence than anything that I've seen in the last 5 years from anything Clemson's produced. And that's why I was really frustrated watching the game, because we've got the talent to beat this team 62-17 like we saw last year. There's not really many changes, but we just kind of ho-hum. We'll keep it vanilla till next week. If you want to keep it vanilla, fine, but this game could have been 42-10 at halftime if we wanted to really turn it up. So, I've been complaining about this for a long time. Where's the killer instinct in these games early on in the season? I know that, it's championship phase and we turn things on, but we got the power to do this. We got the firepower to do this, or Clemson has the firepower to do this, to where, you can get more guys to be able to play in the second half if you just put the pedal to the metal and actually focus on getting it done in the first half. So it's really frustrating. That's why I give it a B. For defense, I'm going to give them a D. I quite frankly thought it was lackluster. We showed our youth on the defensive line with Brzee and Murphy, and they had some good moments. I think our secondary looked on the cornerback position. Darian and Andrew had some good plays. Landon Sanders did not have a good night. He did not have a good night. And the thing that frustrated me the most, and this could be, I'm willing to give Brent Venables the pass on this week just because we're getting ready for Miami. We held Tyler Davis out. Apparently he was available, but we didn't want to play him. But why are we going 3-man front on teams like this? Like, you had the same thing happen to you every single time. What would happen, the reason why they had so many rushing yards is because you'd have a 3-man front, you'd bring 4 guys, maybe 4 or 5, they would run right past the quarterback, and then he would scamper like a 5-5 fullback all the way for 20 yards for first down. And that drove me insane. To see that. So he would just scamper down the field and get that, or throw it up to a 6'7" wide receiver, which they said that 50 times that he was 6'7", and that drove me nuts. But go 4-man front. When Clemson went 4-man front during the game, is when we got sacks. When you bring a 4-man front plus a linebacker or 2, we were able to get coverage and stop them. And I think we only gave up 1 touchdown when we went 4-man front. You're going to have to do that against Miami. You're going to have to do that, and that's the frustration. I went too long. I'm going to stop. That's just where I was at.
and I will say, I feel Houston's pain. I mean, in this game, for instance, though, I'm a little bit disconnected, and I will say because we had a big group over watching the game. Tons of friends over at the house, and we really enjoyed it, breaking all the COVID rules, but had a great time and had some great food, kind of a little at-home tailgate party watching the game. And so I was a little bit, entertaining and didn't see, as close to the game. I will say this, though, for anybody who may be watching, when Houston refers to we, he means him as a fan, okay? We are not associated with Clemson at all. Let me just throw that out there. But I will say he is a huge Clemson fan, and when you get passionate about it, I can understand for sure. Especially knowing it's hard when you're in the situation with the team that you have, because you know the potential that's there. You see the flashes, and then you get given to you, for the most part of 4 quarters, a channel turner. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the team, but I turned the channel a couple of times thinking, this is there's just not much there for me to be interested in. I just felt like it was just flat the entire game for Clemson as a whole. So maybe that was just me as a fan, in my opinion. But, what do you think, Al?
Yeah, I wasn't real thrilled with what I was seeing either. Now, I'm not crazy enough to turn the channel. That's for sure. But, I gave the offense a B-. I wasn't overly impressed with the offense. Like we mentioned before, I wasn't impressed with the game Tony Elliott called. We were in 3rd and long way too much the other night. I mean, just way too much. We picked up several of them, but that's not a position you want to be in. And when you get in against an elite team or an elite defense, you're not going to pick up those 3rd and longs consistently. I didn't think the OL got the push I was looking for. ETN made up for a lot of that. Just goodness gracious, that touchdown run he had around the left side over by the Clemson bench was insane. That was a great run. Getting him involved in the passing game was essential to this season. While our receivers kind of grow up and grow into their roles, having him as another option out there is huge. But overall, B-, not terrible, but a lot to be improved upon for sure. Defensive, I gave a C. We actually have Billy Sigmund's been on the chat over here. He's telling us he doesn't agree at all with us on this defense. He was thinking he's giving more credit to Virginia's offense and their offensive line specifically than we are. And he's right. Virginia had a mammoth offensive line, but I was not impressed with the pass rush at all. There was none. We couldn't get to them all game. And we were sending sometimes 4, sometimes 5 guys, just couldn't get any pressure. Plain and simple. It's like, I'm thinking back to the days of Vic Beasley when he was one of the greatest pass rushers we've ever had, but he couldn't, he'd get swallowed up sometimes by these big offensive linemen. And he wasn't able to do what he was could do to most teams. And it's kind of frustrating to see. Missed tackles, missed assignments in the secondary. Like Houston said, Xanders did not have a good day. I've been pretty high on Xanders. He's kind of, he lacks some in the measurables in the height department and things like that. But usually you kind of make up for that with your work ethic, your tenacity, your smarts, and everything like that. Your good tackling ability. And he just didn't have that night. I'm not down on the kid. I think he'll get it fixed and improved for sure. But it just wasn't his best night. We didn't hear a lot from Brazee or Murphy, which we've gotten really used to these first couple games. We hear a lot from them. They were double teamed a lot. It's not necessarily fair to say they had a bad game. It's just we didn't hear their name like we had hoped. You didn't hear Henry. those guys, we just couldn't get any rush from the edge or the middle, to be honest with you. Booth had a good game. Kendrick had a good game as well. When you don't hear anything about Derion Kendrick most of the game, it's because he's doing a good job, and he did. Nolan Turner, I thought, played well. Balin Spector played well, but the defensive line just flat out didn't get the push, and we're going to need a push against Miami. I'm hoping Venables was kind of, taking his play call in a little vanilla, almost like Tony Elliott, hoping, they were kind of sandbagging a little bit for Miami. We'll find out. I think the Tigers will turn it around this coming weekend. I hope so at least, but I gave them a C.
72 tackles total for the entire team. They gave up 25 first downs compared to Clemson's 22 first downs. And the time of possession was won by Virginia, 33 minutes, 17 seconds, 26 minutes, 43 seconds. So it's kind of one of those things. And Clemson actually had 8 penalties total overall, only 65 yards, thankfully, but only 8 total compared to their 1. So that's kind of a lopsided calling of the game. I don't know why the referees did that, but if you can call 8 on one team, you can call more than 1 on the next team. I mean, come on, their opponent out there is doing more than just 1 penalty the entire night. I mean, really. But it is kind of interesting. I mean, Clemson is out there and they're scoring quick, as you can tell. The time of possession's low, and the first downs are low, and they're not having to do fourth downs, and they're converting 8 of 15 third downs, and they're getting on the field, they're getting off the field, they're scoring, and it's kind of easy. It's kind of fun in the sense it's not as stressful to nitpick a 41-23 win when they were winning the entire game. I mean, they were up 24-10 going into halftime. So it's kind of easy to nitpick those. And for those Clemson fans out there that kind of get on us for doing this, I mean, hey, you have to analyze it. Even the players and the coaches said there's a lot could be improved on in that game. And it specifically goes to improving quick, because Clemson now has to turn around and play Miami. Number 7 Miami at number 1 Clemson. Clemson currently has as far as oddshark.com, a minus 14.5 favorite for the game. And like I said, Clemson's 0-3 against the spread. Miami is actually good against the spread, 3-0. And that's kind of my only stat of the night, really there. I'm looking at this game and I'm seeing, Clemson versus Miami. I'm seeing a concern off the top of my head is that D'Eriq King has been, showing that he can manage that offense really well. He's 63 of 94, 736 yards, only 6 touchdowns though, but hasn't played but 3 games. So, they have beaten Florida State, killed them, but that's not really that big a deal. Louisville went kind of toe-to-toe and ended up winning that one. But Louisville hasn't really been showing that they're some monster team either out there. So what do they have? What have they proved that they can do? What have they proved that they can do against Clemson? It's kind of hard to say, because I believe that, Clemson has, I think Virginia, Wake, Citadel, it's really hard to say. But what I will say is that I'm looking forward containing D'Eriq King. I don't want to see him get out and run the ball against Clemson. I don't want to see him, kind of having his day on third down. So that's my first thing is when you get into Brent Venables type defenses, and we've talked about this many times, when you're man-to-man on the outside, you're man-to-man to the tight end, you're man-to-man to the running back, a lot of times you're also man-to-man to that quarterback, or ignoring him altogether and just hoping he's contained by the defensive ends. And if you're not careful, that will hurt you on third down, because what Miami liked to do against Louisville was come out in an obvious passing down, come out in an obvious spread formation, sometimes with no running back. And D'Eriq King basically did the Cam Newton-esque type thing where he would just wait until there was enough room to run for the third down conversion. And it really wasn't ever intended to be a pass, but it actually was a passing play. He does drop back, and the wide receivers are running those routes, but in his quarterback mind, he's going to run it anyways. And it's hard to determine, is that going to be the case or not, and contain that quarterback. So I'm interested to see that. I'm also interested to see Harris as well. Cameron Harris has 311 yards and 5 total touchdowns on the year, compared to Travis Etienne's 243 and 2 touchdowns. Miami is a well-balanced team, and they've got just as good of a defense, I believe, as anybody in the ACC. So I think it's going to be a good matchup. It's obvious why there is going to be College Game Day there. the Clemson or the ESPN matchup predictor currently has Clemson as an 86% favorite. And I don't have the odds shark up of the Clemson game. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, OddsShark has a predicted score of 45-24. It currently even with some of the consensus on the spread going to Miami, 52%, but 94% expect the over, which is 61 points. So high scoring matchup with Clemson predicted to win, but the consensus is kind of 50-50 on whether or not they'll win by a little more than 2 touchdowns or not. I'll kind of do a turn or pass it around the horn here before. Don't give your picks against the spread until the end. But what are your concerns for Clemson going in? What do they need to do and to look out for maybe that I haven't already said, or if you agree? We'll start with you, Al.
Of course, you'll start with me while I'm typing on the chat line over here. No, I mean, you got to be concerned about D'Eriq King, plain and simple. I don't know. Morgan can probably look up the tape. All of these shows run together for us. I don't know which one of us predicted Miami to win the Coastal, back when we thought there was going to be a Coastal. But I think Miami's a talented
He's
team.
joking.
I think Miami's a talented team. I was higher on them, than most at the beginning of the year. And we'll see what they've got. They've showed good, they showed good stuff so far. It's got a lot of Clemson fans kind of concerned about the weekend after that last performance. But you got to handle D'Eriq King. You got to find some way to make him uncomfortable. You got to get a pass rush, which I think will be easier for us with their offensive line compared to Virginia's. But also, when you get the pass rush, you can't overrun it either. Okay, because then he'll burn you with his feet badly. A lot of people, when we play a Lamar Jackson type, when we play a D'Eriq King, they always want to leave a spy. They always want to leave somebody just in case he takes off. Okay, which is a lot easier said than done because some of these guys are such good athletes. Even leaving one guy can get you burnt badly, and you have one less guy in coverage. So there's a win-lose kind of situation there. But Brent Venables usually finds a way to concoct a masterpiece in these type of situations. D'Eriq King's not quite Lamar Jackson. He is a good player, but it's gonna be fun to see what Clemson can do. I think they're going to rebound a little bit and show us some stuff on the defensive line. I'm hoping we're going to see some more exotic blitzes and stuff like that from Venables as well. But I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think if I know Brent Venables like I think most of us do, that he's probably torn into a few people since Saturday evening. I would expect Clemson's going to respond in kind with Miami. My question is this. If you can make D'Eriq King one-dimensional and make him beat you with his arm or try to beat you with his arm, and I'm not saying he can't do that. What I am saying is if you take his primary runners, Harris and Knighton out of the game, or take that ability to just run all over the field away and make him try to beat you with his arm, then I think that you've got a better shot. Really test him to do that, because I think the only big time pass plays that D'Eriq King has made this year have been complete bust in coverage in Louisville. You had 2 75-yard bombs against them with virtually no one in front of them. I might be wrong, but I don't think Clemson's going to be doing that as much with their defense, despite we may have had some problems the other night. I don't think that's going to be that bad, or Clemson has problems like that. But I think Clemson's going to get it done. I think when you look at our offense, Clemson's offense versus Miami's defense, I think it's in Clemson's advantage. And I think ultimately it'll be similar to most of the ACC games we've seen in the past, where Miami might come to play with us for a quarter or two, but Clemson will end up pulling away towards the end.
And some of our fans are getting in on the text line, my personal text line, so not a text line I'm going to tell you about. But from the fifth quarter, Clemson over on Twitter asking a question, what do we think the factor is going to be for Tyler Davis being back in the mix, which is something that, you guys have talked about, the concern with the defensive line. Maybe they're waiting on Tyler Davis to come back, and it looks like he will be in the mix this weekend. Their prediction is really close to the OddsShark prediction of 45-26. So obviously more than 14 points, just a little bit more than 14 winner as from them. So I think obviously having Tyler Davis back is huge for anybody. I mean, he's such a great player. You have to be able to have him in the mix to kind of hold his own. And even though I felt like he was undersized to begin with, he has really shown that it doesn't matter. He knows how to use his body in situations and leverage himself against the offensive line. So I'm excited to see Tyler Davis back. It's like I said, he's been missed. I mean, at the end of the day, you got these big guys out there, but in some cases it may be because they're new, they're young, they're having to get used to the offensive line schemes that are kind of out there. Now, I'm not a big know-it-all of offensive line. We'll have to get our friend Eric McLean on to talk about the offensive line. But what I will say is that you got Murphy and you got Brazee out there. Those guys are definitely young, so they can't do it all right out the start. There's going to be some flaws there. There's going to be some learning curve, some growing mistakes, and some pains there. Again, it goes back to we're kind of nitpicking a team that beat somebody 40-20. So it's still fun at the end of the day. I hope that this game is going to be everything that's built up to for college football fans. But I also hope that Clemson comes out with a win, even though Clemson is 0-3 against the spread. I really feel like that this team can continue to hold their own and continue to just pull away as games go on. And considering that Miami kind of went back and forth with Louisville, and Louisville ended up not being as good as we thought. Miami just destroyed Florida State, but who cares, really, to be honest, in that sense. I feel like that Clemson does, and Chat mentioned this too, don't forget about the tight ends. Clemson has a good tight end, but so does Miami, and that's going to mess up the middle of the field. They're going to have to really think about the middle of the field there. And as you mentioned, Landon Zanders, Nolan Turner, going to have to be really aware of the middle of the field because of the tight end. But even though Clemson's 0-3 against the spread, to me, 14.5, beating a team 14.5 at home is easier than 28 at home, especially the returning or defending coastal champions in Virginia. Miami is better than Virginia in a lot of ways, but I feel like Clemson should be able to beat this team by 2 touchdowns. So I'm going to go ahead and say, give me Clemson to cover the spread 14.5 right now. So mark it down. I might be 0-4 at the end of the week, but at least I'll be 0-4 with the Tigers.
All right. So are we going? So we're already into the pick segment. Have we done our?
We're doing just Clemson now. Just Clemson now. Don't stress out.
Okay.
Don't stress out.
All right. No stress. Yeah, we're gonna have to do like rapid fire for all the rest of the picks. But yeah, I think Clemson bounces back this week. Plain and simple. I think they bounce back. I think Venables comes with a good plan. Our man Philip, our resident Vol fan, gets in of all people, and I feel sorry for him because this week they have to play Georgia. But he says, sometimes not to blitz and not have the D-line's ears pins back works well against a quarterback run, which is 100% right. Have the D-line stay in their gaps, breaking down, not getting way upfield. He's 100% right about that. I'm sure Venables is going to have that plan as he always does. And we're really going to make Derek King, like Houston said, beat us in the air, which is I hope is what we do. And see if he can do it. If he do, if he can, kudos. But I think we're going to be ready for that. And I really think our offense is going to be just fine. I think you're going to see the playbook opened up by Elliott. I think you're going to see the tight end involved a little bit. And, of course, you're going to see a lot of Etienne as well. But it's going to be a good game. I hate to do this because – they always burn me. It doesn't matter if I pick for or against Clemson against the spread. I always lose Clemson games. So if you ever hear me pick a Clemson game, do not get excited. I always lose them. But I am taking Clemson minus 14.5 as well.
Agreed. Brent Venables will have the boys ready. I think the offense will have a better game plan. I think Clemson will cover. It'll be somewhere along the lines of 42-20. I'm going to say that.
I need to get my pen out here, kind of write these down because that was one of our first ones for the night. But yeah, so we all hammered home Clemson. I won't do the button because it's not the pick segment yet, but just be careful because it's coming. It's coming. But yeah, so we're predicting a Clemson win. We're predicting a Clemson to beat the spread, and we're excited about what's going to go on with Miami. Let us know in the comments what you think about the Miami-Clemson game. If we're completely off or anything that we missed, let us know in the comments, YouTube, Facebook. We really appreciate it.